Good day, learners, and welcome to session 10. This second to the last session for this BUS301. This session discusses a very important issue. How do the management theories fit into an environment that has changed? When Taylor was here in 1890 something, the environment was quite different. There's no ICT. People were not educated, and people depended more on their physical strength than on their knowledge. Now there's ICT. People are not that strong again. The economy has changed, the society has changed. How do we apply management theories in this changing environment? Meanwhile, in the last session, we discussed change management theories. We discussed reasons why change has become very prevalent. We talked about theories starting with that of Lewin, the 3-point thing, Cotta, which is an 8-point thing, we also discussed theory E and O. Theory E, a top-down thing, and theory O, an organizational capability focused participative kind of management. Then we discussed the difference between change and transition. So you're welcome to this session 10, and at the end of this session you will be explaining some efforts as wrapping up these theories. What efforts have we made to bring all of them together? And I think we are going to talk about the triangular model and the leadership versatility. And we're going to discuss the extent to which these precisions still hold in this environment. For instance, Taylor talked about division of labor. But today, like I said, we are talking about multitasking. Fire talked about one man reporting to one boss. But even starting from the good old process, you now have people reporting to many bosses. I report to the HOD, to the dean, and to the vice chancellor, even though there's a way it is coordinated. Even the project theory, the chief accountant, the accountant in our faculty is the accountant in our faculty dealing with our dean. But he's also reporting to the chief accountant of the university, boss. So you can find that the concept of absolute specialization does not work again. So that's what we're going to do in this session. Kaplan and Kaiser, long time ago, 2003, identified 4 leadership styles and placed them in 2 opposing camps. And they say that you should not adopt either or, which is what people do. They say the best thing for you to do is to look at the 2 sides and take the best of those sides when it is most suitable for you. So you cannot say, I either move up or I move down. I either take the right or I have to take the left. No. He said you take all of them. Look at the virtues, the advantages of each one, and make sure that at each point in time you are able to optimize it by using that one that is most suitable for the given part of the environment. The 4 leadership styles they identified are forceful leadership, aggressive, decisive, taking charge. Number 2, enabling leadership. This one creates conditions for people to be forces in their own right. People are empowered, it's participatory and whatever. Strategic leadership. Once you talk about strategy, you're talking about holistic, you're talking about long term. And so strategic leadership is long term. And operational leadership is short term. You can see that strategic leadership and enabling leadership have something in common, while forceful leadership and operational leadership have something in common. But let us see how these 2 are done, and let's see. So look at the 4 of them, and for each one you are given the advantages and the disadvantages. Look at forceful leadership. It takes charge as a virtue and is in control. It takes stand on issues and articulates very effectively, and it holds others accountable. These are the positive sides of it. But in the other negative side, that's what we call vice, you find out that it is rigid, it demoralizes people, it's insensitive, it appears callous, and it doesn't value other people's opinion. For strategic leadership, it's focused on long-term goals. It thinks broadly and is expansive about growing the business. For enabling leadership, let us go to the vice. It abdicates responsibility, it takes no clear stand, and is overly accommodating. It doesn't hold people accountable. While operational leadership, let's take the virtue, it focuses on getting short-term results, and we do everything towards that short-term result. On the other side, I find out that it is myopic, has a tunnel vision, short term. and is bogged down with details. So these are the things. The four: forceful and enabling, strategic and operational. And they are saying, do not take either or, the ones up, the two up, or the two down. He said, so this is a sort of contingency theory. For the circumstances, find the one that is very useful and make the best out of it. Now, next is the triangular model. I mentioned two of them in the beginning. These authors acknowledge the various studies to the approach to the study of management, which is what we have been discussing, and they decide to adopt a unified approach in the analysis. So they see management as an open system, and they retrace the importance of information to analyze and understand it. Whatever. And they believe that that information can be gotten from classical, behavioral, and management science approach. And so they came up with the triangular model. Management as an open system, we need information to analyze it, and that information can be brought from these three systems. That is why and how they came into the triangular model of management, which we are going to whatever. So you can see classical based information, management science based information, behavioral based information. So you find out that being an open system, you have the process which is input, process, output. In the system theory, we talk about input, which goes into the organization, is transformed into output, and it goes outside. So, and all these things are influenced by the environment, the customers, the government, the suppliers, and the competitors, and others. So you take information from the classical based, management theory based, and behavioral based, and within that system's process, you have input, you have processes, and that gives right out to output. And in this environment, the customers, the government, the competitors, and suppliers are the key factors in that environment. So both of them, the versatility model and the triangular model, are efforts that have been made to make sure that these theories and whatever are brought together so that people can, rather than going in different directions. Beyond that effort, what about today? How far have this management, how about these theories go today? So instead of extreme specialization, Fayol talked about that, Orwig talked about that, Taylor talked about that. But now we have gone into the era of multitasking and cross-functionalism. Why? So that if somebody doesn't come to work, others will be able to manage his work, at least for the meantime. And because it's important to get people have a wider knowledge. In the beginning, I mentioned the issue of how people used to write draft before. So the person writing the draft is not the person coding it, it's not the person signing it. So it's they are separate, they are different functions. But if it's in a multitasking environment or cross-functional environment, even that person knows how to do this and do that and do that. So he has a fuller idea of the job that is performing. That's also why in some organizations, the training starts by taking you across the various functions. If you go to Lever Brothers, at a given time, the person who is in charge of marketing is in logistics, and the person who is in charge of logistics goes to MIS. They want you to have a broad idea. Now, as of today, workers report to multiple bosses. And like I said, in the project structure and matrix structure, that's always been the thing. And I gave you an example of a lecturer, like myself. My HOD is my boss, my direct boss. When I take instructions from the dean, I take from PG school, because I'm a credential of a PG program, and I teach in the PG program. And I take from the university management. They can call us for a meeting when we have a class, for instance. And they say, no, we have a meeting of all so. And you have to attend to the meeting. The dean can fix a postgraduate project defense on a Thursday at a time when you have called your students to come for an assignment. So you are reporting to multiple bosses. Now I have fluid organizational structures that you can't even know how to call them before you have a functional, geographical project. But now the structures are so many. They are so fluid. They are project-based structures. PM, you assemble people. After that, they finish. There's a proposal to be made. You will get people from every whatever. You get the lawyer, get the accountant, get the marketing, get the engineer, and put them together. And they do that on a team-based system, and nobody is the boss because everybody is an authority on his own. After that, they go. Now, since the customer consciousness, the quality management, all of them started, you find out that now orders about what should be done in many organizations come from the customers. The customer is king. You remember the law. Number one, the customer is always right. Number two, even if the customer is wrong, remember number one. So even though those things are, so the theories are changing. Some of the fundamentals of those theories are changing. But it doesn't mean that the theories are no longer relevant. They are still there, but they are modified. Division of labor is still current. You see people who are doing marketing, you see people who are in operations, but what happens is that time they take a holistic, so that even somebody in finance will be marketing the organization. You see have hierarchy, but in this era of delayering and flat structures, the hierarchy is no longer long, it's flat. Delayering means reducing the layers in an organization. There's an organization where you can go to and you have up to 20 layers from messenger to CEO. In some places, it's 10. In some places, it may be 7. In some organizations, what we have is assistant manager, manager, senior manager, AGM. If you go to another organization, it will take 10 steps. You can have assistant manager, deputy manager, manager 1 and 2, principal manager 1, 2, 3, senior principal manager, and AGM. So but there are still hierarchy. But what the argument now is that the hierarchy is being reduced. Competence, which Taylor talked about, what you can do, is irrelevant. But now we're not talking about people's ability and the raw, ability to carry iron, carry locomotive and whatever. We're talking about emotional intelligence, political and social savviness. What's emotional intelligence? Interpersonal relationship. How you manage your emotions and appreciate the emotions of others so as to make sure that relationship moves well for you and for the organization. It is now clear and is proved and is in writing that your competence may well get you started, but that what will get you on is your emotional intelligence. Metrics, these are data, figures, and whatever, as propounded by Taylor, they are still being used, but the issue that they are now computer-based. You are always taking figures. This person did 10 rounds, he got this. You are using them to compare and contrast and to encourage people and to do everything. Because Taylor was bent on arguing that there must be means of comparing what you have done, capturing those things and using them for future whatever. It's still there. So what I'm saying, and it's not what I'm saying, that's what you find out, is that the principles, number one, are no longer as stringent as they are before. We have moved from, for instance, from specialization to multitasking and cross-functionalism. And we're saying that even those principles, they are still here as of today. But the issue is that they are being modified. We still have division of labor, but we know now how we do it. We still have hierarchy, but we are talking about flat structures. We still talk about competence, but we are no longer talking about the person who's able to carry 10 bags of cement from here to there. We're talking about capabilities. And these have been matched with things like emotional intelligence. And metrics are still being there, but now they are computer-based. So what we are saying is that, number one, efforts are being made to wrap up all these management theories and whatever. And that's why you have the triangular approach and you have the versatile leadership model. Take the best from this and that and fit it to the environment to achieve results. We're also saying that those theories can no longer work as they were because the environment was different. People report to more than one boss. We'll give an example. And specialization is not that extreme. But we're saying that even some of these things are still being used, and that most importantly, they are, they are being modified. People still have division of labor. People still have the issue of how to report and all that. But what we're saying is that they are being modified to suit the current macro and micro environment. I thank you for listening. We're gradually coming to the end of this course. What we have done now is to discuss, how these principles fit into the current environment. You better take note of that because it's very important. We are going to, in the next session, which will be the final one, we're going to examine how these theories fit into Nigeria of today. We're going to use one of these theories, and I won't tell you until you're there.